Going to start our study session. And before we do, I just want to give a reminder that there will be a public meeting on Monday, September 27th at 1 o'clock on the CDBG funding. I have item number 9, and I will know by Monday. Councilor Bay. Okay, we'll come back. Councilor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 11 is project management software, which was discussed in our committee meeting. Does anyone have any questions on item 11? Item 12 is also software. It's related to permitting. Any questions on that item? Okay. We'll go to item 13, which is the use of ARPA money for Microsoft 365. So one of the follow-ups from that, is Jen here? Yeah. So related to this, I know we've talked over the past couple of years about economic development Microsoft is interested in. So I was just curious how that stands today.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Gentift, Deputy Commissioner at NBD. Yeah, it's a good question. Not really directly related, as you all know, to the 365 implementation for the city, but essentially we continue to, work with them, the county and SU, that's sort of the 4 parties to the digital alliance that we enacted. The focus with them continues to be on support for our data analytics infrastructure and data specific projects. So I think Dave can go into more detail on all of this, but Dave mentioned last week in the committee meeting that they have been working with us to help us stand up a data warehouse, which is one of the key components so that we can start ingesting data into that warehouse. For example, as we set up sensors and other types of things, and then do the analytics on that data. So one focus is on the city's data analytics activities. Another focus is on workforce and economic development. So they've worked with the city, but also some of our partners that typically will lead or do workforce development projects. For example, they've done, I think, one, I'm blanking on what it's called, not a software boot camp, but like a gaming tournament. I need to eat lunch. They've done a gaming tournament with a couple of our partners, including Hack Upstate, for example. So we're trying to find opportunities like that to really engage with them. That's really the intent of the MOU that we signed with them. But happy to answer more specific questions.
So I know when we were initially discussing it, there was talk of a physical location in the city. Is that still something they're discussing?
So it's something that I think we'd like to re-engage with them on. Very candidly, when the pandemic hit, Microsoft was a corporation that globally pretty dramatically changed its policy and protocols around the use of physical space. So Microsoft's one of those companies that globally, I think all of their workforce is working remotely through sometime in 2022. As you know, they closed not just the store at Destiny, but all of their Microsoft storefronts. So they took a pretty dramatic shift away from any sort of storefront, physical, brick and mortar location, with the exception of their headquarter organizations in Seattle and cities like that. So it is something that when the pandemic hit, we've paused conversations with them about, but it's something that I think as we, hopefully start to emerge from this pandemic, they seem willing and open to have the conversation, but it is something that very much was impacted by the pandemic.
It just would seem to me, if we're going to give them a $500,000 contract, it's a good time to have that conversation, right? I mean, ultimately.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So, okay. Is there other questions on this item?
Yeah, I have a question, Councilor Green. Do we have the proposed contract for this yet?
That would probably be a Dave question.
Afternoon, Counselors. Dave Proack, Director of IT. I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
No, I'm wondering if we have a copy of the proposed contract. Or sales agreement or
We
whatever.
do not yet. I mean, it's, there's only one vendor you can purchase it from in New York State. Dell owns that contract, so, no, I don't think we've gotten a copy of that yet.
Are you done, Counselor White? Sorry.
Yes.
Did we consider other vendors for this, and how did we ultimately come to Microsoft being the chosen one?
So, we did not choose we did not look at any other vendors for this specific install base. We're a Microsoft shop. Our data is largely stored in Microsoft SQL Server databases. We use a series of Office applications now. Granted, we're using old versions of them, but the transition from something like this to Google Sheets, that would be a big transition. In addition, as Jen mentioned, we have a data warehouse up in the Azure cloud. The Azure is Microsoft's cloud, so it just seemed to be, a hand in glove way to proceed with this. But to answer your question, no, we didn't go out and look at Google Sheets or Google Docs or anything like that. I don't think that right now is an apples to apples comparison.
Do you know how long the proposed migration would take?
The proposed,
Migration?
it's probably a total of 6 to 9 months. There's a whole host of products that we'd be rolling out, but the first and foremost would be email and the Office apps. We're going to have a whole schedule rolling those things out. I may have mentioned it before. The city's done a really good job using WebEx for their online meetings. So the Microsoft version of that Teams is probably one of the last things we go live with, because we've already got that functionality up and running. So it's probably 6 to 9 months, soup to nuts.
Okay, and do we have a proposed schedule for what that rollout might look like?
We're actually working on that right now. We're interviewing, they have us enrolled in their Fast Track Partner Program. We have our third interview with a third partner tomorrow. We're going to choose a mate, if you will, through that process with Microsoft's help. That's being funded with Microsoft dollars to fast track large organizations making such a migration. And the outcome of that will be a schedule we'll be glad to share with you.
I understand.
Does it include training,
Yes.
this contract?
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on this item? Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Any questions on item 14? This is a cash capital account, IT related. Item 15 is a contract with Spectrum Business for the installation of internet service. Any questions on that item? Okay. Items 16 through 18 are related to legal settlements, so we will discuss that in executive session on Monday. Item 19 is funding related to Leadership Greater Syracuse. Is there any questions on that item? Okay. Item 20 is a fund transfer. Any question on that? And then item 21 is a correction of the
Sorry, that was my
tax roll.
thing under my desk. I keep kicking it.
I'll wait till DPW comes up and get you back. All right. Any questions on item 21? Okay. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Counselor Bay.
Thank you. Item number 10, which we've discussed, I think in detail. Any of my colleagues have any questions? This will be ready for Monday, public hearing. All right.
Counselor Paniagua.
Yes, I have item number 22. This is to amend the help people to administer the employee assistance program for one more year. We have, do you want to help us with this? I mean, if there are any questions.
Good afternoon, it's Donna Briscoe, Director of Personnel, and we are trying to extend the Help People Employee Assistance Program contract for 1 year. This is services that we provide to our employees and our employees' families, free counseling services. They get you connected to other services if need be. And we do supervisory trainings throughout, and it's been a greatly used program. We've been with Help People for a long time.
And not to exceed $40,000, by the
Correct,
way.
not to exceed $40,000.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Carney.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 23. It's revocable permission with AT&T to lay some conduit that they'll give us, it appears, a little over $2,800 annually. Are there any questions? I know we discussed it in the committee, standing committee meeting. Are there any further questions on this one? No? Okay, that's ready to go. Those are my items, Madam President.
Counselor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 24 through 29. All these were discussed in the standing committee. I believe most of the councilors were there, and unless there's any questions, I'll ask for them to be forwarded to the agenda.
Counselor Majok.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 30 through 33. Like Councilor Hogan said, we discussed this in the committee meetings. Anybody with questions? Look at that, Chief Cecil. You don't have to come up here.
Thank you. Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 34 through 36. Item 34 was held over. Commissioner Collins, if you have any updates from the county?
Hello, councilors. Commissioner Michael Collins, Neighborhood and Business Development. So, still have the item in front of you. We're aware of the fact that the state has put $125 million towards this same area median income. We're grateful that the state has seen the need in the same way that we have. We believe that $125 million is a significant amount of money, similar to what we've got in ARPA, and B, likely significantly less than what the need is. For example, back in February and March, when the county did their survey of landlords and to determine what the need was in Syracuse, the overall need in Syracuse at the time was estimated at $125 million. So considering what the need might be in Brooklyn, White Plains, Queens, we think that the need is absolutely still going to be there. The other thing that we have talked about that I think is very significant is the benefit to ensuring that our residents live in safe housing. And that has happened because of the relationship that we have with DSS, and they're respecting our ordinance that says that you cannot collect rent if you don't have a valid rental registry or certificate of compliance. And so that's led to us being able to get an increase in inspections, an increase in compliance. And OTDA, it is unlikely that we would be able to negotiate a way for them to check our systems on that, since that's a large state agency that's just not expected to be able to include that.
Commissioner, sorry, do we have any data on that, on the increase in rental registry?
I can get you numbers. What I typically see is a large stack in that office that we're consistently going through, because we still do have those that are applying by coming in and dropping it off rather than through online, although we accept them online as well.
Yeah, I'd always be curious to know
Yeah,
where we are with the
absolutely.
percentage. If you could give me a number on that, that'd be great.
I'll check with Commissioner Dishaw, or Director Dishaw, we'll get that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Questions or comments?
I have a brief question, Councilor Allen. So Commissioner Collins, is that $125 million, is that a statewide pot, or is that the money being directed to Syracuse?
Statewide. Yep.
And do we have any idea, is any money being specifically targeted to us, or is it just, are they going to be assisting with our applications?
It's going to be first come, first serve. They are doing reserve for 80 to 100% area median income, which is the proposal that we have in front of you as well for the first 30 days.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, do you mind, Councilor Arnold? So wasn't there some bottlenecking around the eviction moratorium and not being able to release this money? Was that only with the federal money, or?
So bottlenecking with eviction moratorium in court, I'm not, absolutely could be blanking on something, but I'm not thinking of something that's directly tied to this with what we've been doing locally. What I will say is that there are some protections so that if someone has applied and hasn't been processed yet, they do have protection for a period of time while their application is being considered.
I think what I was referring to was in the early days, the money was not released unless the person had gotten an eviction notice, and because New York had put in the state eviction notice, the federal money was not being released but that's not affecting this.
I understand what you're talking about. So the
Okay.
Emergency Solutions Grant money that we have allocated through there was 2 allocations through Coronavirus Emergency Solutions Grant, ESGCB 1 and 3. And those funds are directly tied to eviction. So the eviction moratorium that was in place in New York before there was nationally meant that New York residents were unique in the fact that they could not access ESG funds.
Okay.
We do have, however, we've been able to support through the CDBG funds and then also through the Treasury funds that went directly to the county.
Okay, so they're all different funding streams.
All different, three specifically different funding streams.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, Commissioner, with $125 million allocation, would this $1 million be an addition to whatever they get, or would we say somehow track that this person, once they get it from the state, they can get it here?
So the $125 million is specific to the entire state. So it is for the entire state. It's not specific to Central New York residents. So there's that. Secondly, DSS would ensure that there is not payment from OTDA. It would be one or the other.
Okay, one or the
That would be it. Yep. Sure.
I'm sorry, point, Councilor Bay.
Sure. I don't know if I missed it, but has the request process started already? Or if not, how soon will we be able to put a request in? And obviously, I would think that we could attempt to request the same million we would use, especially considering, the area percentage rate in New York City will eat up $125 million like $5. So, when you say it's first come, first serve, how fast are we on the draw to get our request in?
So the applications will begin being considered in October. So it has not started yet. And I believe that there's 2 reasons for that. One is certainly getting the word out. The other is, as we've talked about relative to this, since it is a different group than has been eligible before, there needs to be some procedures set up in place to be able to process that.
But what I'm asking is, are we prepared? So if the process starts in October, are we already set, or you're saying we're not because an actual application has not been provided?
An actual application has not yet been provided. Yeah, and you're talking specific to the OTDA money, is that correct?
The $125 million from the
Correct,
state, right?
yep.
Commissioner Collins, do we know if there will be any reconsideration of applications? So say that somebody did apply for this other money, was found ineligible because they made over the limit. Is there any process that's going to be in place to go back and capture those people?
So currently, for those that have applied to DSS, if they were over income, they were not able to complete the application process. So that's part of why within our request, the county has requested $10,000 for marketing and a little bit of that to be able to redesign the application. So those people would be encouraged to go back and actually complete an application. That would be specific to their area median income.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Allen, if I could, so we still, Commissioner, we still don't have a number of how many people, a guesstimate of how many people would qualify for this 80 to 100% tranche, right?
So with the fact that they have not actually been able to apply, there is not a mechanism to be able to catch an exact number.
Okay, and I was a little confused about the $125 million from the state. That would be all encompassing for all the way up to 100%?
The 125 actually covers a wider range, which is one of the concerns about how quickly it will go. It is reserved for the first 30 days for up to 100%. And then whatever is left is opened up to 120% area median income.
If there's anything left, obviously. So we would, did you say that if you're eligible for the ARPA money and you're eligible for the state money, but you can only get one or the other, right?
We would work with DSS to ensure that anybody that is applying for ARPA funds was not actively seeking funds from OTDA.
We would work with the county.
We would work with the county on that,
right. And have we resolved the issue as far as I know Councilor Carney and Councilor Bay were working on the administrative costs. Have we resolved that issue?
Correct. So it's 0% administration. The request is simply $10,000 for a redesign of the application and marketing, as we've all had concern around making sure everyone's aware of it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Allen.
And that 10,000 would be coming from this money? The county
Correct.
wouldn't be
Yep.
providing it?
Yeah, it would not be 1,010,000. They are not able to access their existing funds for it, since those funds are restricted at the 30, 50, 60, 80% AMI, depending on the pot of money.
What about the argument that we made that potentially for the county to potentially provide the marketing for it as opposed to taking money from here? How did that go?
To date, the argument has not persuaded the county to act.
Yeah,
in that way.
based on the conversations I had, trying to get, the fight was to try and get a match from them. If we were gonna allocate the $1 million, that they would also match $1 million. With the, conversation that I had, the reasoning that I was given was that, they've already allocated funds toward different projects, so to do anything further with us, they would then have to take money away from
Stadium.
other folks to other, projects.
The stadium.
They could use some of the 25 million from the soccer field.
Right, $1 million off.
Well, I mean, they can't give us $10,000?
That's 25 million for a soccer field. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Skim $1 million off.
Counselor, I've not had success on the $10,000. I'm doing my best to be as pragmatic as possible here.
One of the things I don't understand from the county is that the city is stepping into a territory that it does not traditionally do business in, right? Which is the DSS part, right? But the county is, I don't understand if I would assume that they would come running to us and say, you know what, city, thank you for doing this. That's what for them to even, you know what I mean?
Can't get $10,000?
This is.
I was saying, they'd just be giving us our own money back, so it's not.
And I have talked to the county ledge, and so the 4 people from my party are actually going to address it. They don't think it's gonna go very far, but they want to push them to call, so.
Understood.
So Michael, besides the focus that we have on the IMA of 80 to 100, so are there any significant other differences in the guidelines? between
No,
us and
Counselor,
them?
there wouldn't. Everything else would be the same.
They would be the same.
Yeah, and as a refresher, that includes up to 12 months of back rent without a dollar cap on it, so that we're really able to make sure that the tenant is safe in their housing going forward, because they do have protections against eviction for non-payment once the landlord accepts payment. And the landlord is, if not made whole, made significantly enough whole that hopefully they're able to continue to retain quality housing.
Excellent. I just think that any relief we can bring to our families in the city is a good thing to do.
So who does the protection on that? I mean, it must be a pretty acrimony between the tenant and the landlord after all these months. So who protects?
Well, the courts specifically, because it's an agreement that is signed by the landlord that they cannot evict for non-payment reasons.
Because they've been paid now.
Because they've been paid, right. And so the protection is within the courts. And as you likely recall, we have funded the volunteer lawyer groups to provide counsel to tenants within housing court. So they do have access to counsel within court if it were to be brought up.
Commissioner, does that include, when you talk about the evictions, so I had an incident this week where the landlord, while the girl was out of her apartment, he changed the locks. Is that included?
So that would be included in that, but that also, depending on the situation, may be completely illegal and something that they can take to court and could be a criminal issue.
Now, Commissioner, in addition, are you all set, Madam President? Sorry. She all set? Okay. In addition to that, Commissioner, now, this is not just landlord. These are assumed somebody with mortgage and lost income somehow at that percentage, they would also apply as well, right?
And one of the ways in which this remains the same as the existing programming is that it is participated in, it is for tenants, and the tenant and the landlord must participate. So there is not something related to this funding that's specific to homeownership.
Just before we move on, Counselor, I don't know if I can make one last remark. We have members of the press here, and I just think it's absolutely egregious that the county will not help us on this. When, as I said, they're spending $45 million, the entirety of their money, and not a dime of it is going to the city. It's absolutely outrageous. We are 1/3 of the county. We pay county tax. We are the city. We are the seat of the county. We have problems unlike any other area, and instead we are building a soccer stadium with 1/2 of the money out in Salina. It's absolutely outrageous, and I cannot believe that the county would not match us on this simple. Put that.
Item 35, this was an agreement for about the elevator issue that I think Counselor Carney had on his, but is now on my agenda. Did we have any, we didn't have any questions at the committee meeting, so I would assume that it's okay. Item 36, I'm still gonna hold this. I just have some uncertainty about the property on Leon Street, only because it's so close to the state is proposing the roundabout. So I just don't think, as of right now, we don't really have a neighborhood plan for that particular street. So I don't wanna just chop up the block and give like one property to the land bank, one property to somebody else, and then when we really need to develop that street, we have so many different owners. So have you guys considered a plan for that street since it's so close to this new plan with the roundabout at all?
So, excellent question, Counselor. Michelle Skapansky has been traveling, so I will reach out to, I'll let her know of your question and make sure that she's able to respond to you.
Okay.
Okay?
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, and that's all I had.
Righty, I need a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great day.
Okay.